Hey, what's up everybody? LA Director back with a brand new video. There's a bit of wind here in where I'm at, so it's quite a beautiful location behind me. We got boats and water. Usually I take a walk around this place because it helps me have a proper conversation with nature as well, because I want you guys to get clarity in terms of what I'm about to share. So today I want you to pay attention to what I'm telling you. The reason for this video today, and I've been doing a small series lately, if you haven't noticed, it's called Rants about debt and credit, and I want to really take my time to go ahead and give you guys a little breakdown of today's content. The objective of today's content is to talk about debt and leveraging debt for profit or scale or perhaps opportunity. See, a lot of us were so used to looking at situations where like, hey, if I just had a little bit of credit, if I leveraged it, I'd be able to go ahead and scale my business. Or if I had a little bit of debt or a little bit more money, if I can leverage it, I'd be able to, scale an opportunity or be able to fly and do wonderful things with my life or this opportunity. So I want to be real in reference to, is it realistic what we're telling ourselves when it comes to debt and credit? Is it realistic to say all those things that we're trying to say and assume that whatever we can do with that debt, we can turn around our lives and we don't have to worry too much about if we can afford it, but rather just grab that debt and do what you got to do real quick and just move past that. So today, I want to really dig deep and take my time on talking about some realistic measures when it comes to the situation, because quite frankly, it does take a little bit of time, right? And quite frankly, there's a lot of people who don't necessarily know the ins and outs of leveraging the proper way. And unfortunately, that is the reality for most. And the reason why it's like that is because we weren't taught this type of stuff in school or college or university, right? We're not taught this kind of stuff. In college, university, and school, there's just so much more things that we're doing, like, history and mathematics and English writing and essay writing and, literature, whatever the case. But we're not taught the essentials of leverage. We're not taught the essentials of how to use debt or credit to the best of our ability to get the best outcomes possible so that we can use this information to advance in our lives and, quite frankly, move forward with our lives in a way that is pretty structured. So a good example of this is, imagine you're leveraging debt. Imagine you're borrowing $100,000. For simplicity's sake, let's keep it very easy to understand. So let's assume you're borrowing $100,000, and from that $100,000, let's assume at worst case scenario you're paying 24% interest, which is like a very high rate of interest for credit cards, which is kind of normal nowadays. But let's assume you're paying 24%, right? And let's assume you find an opportunity for $100,000 and you're like, hey, I can use this $100,000 if I were to have the credit, but I would turn it around. It'll take me 5 months to exit the project and it'll only cost a little bit of money. But at the end of the day, if I put in $100,000 in this opportunity, I can flip it around and make $150,000, right? So if you think about it this way, common sense would tell us, hey, sure. Okay, now you're going to take $100,000 from leverage, which is credit. And you're going to take this $100,000 and you're going to go ahead and turn that around in a matter of months, which is 6 months. Your cost of the money is 24%. So if you were to divide that by 12, which is monthly, that's 2% a month. So on $100,000, interest only, 2% a month is close to $2,000, right? Because 12% is 12,000 divided by 12 is 1,000 times 2, which is 24. It's 2,000 a month. So your cost of using that money is going to be $2,000 a month in interest alone. We didn't even touch the basis of principal. But let's assume that you borrow that and you leverage it. And you're saying, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me. Let me go ahead and take this money. So you take that money and now your cost of money is going to be 24% a year. And your opportunity is to make $150,000, but you got to wait at 6 months. So interest alone, 6 months, it's going to cost you already $12,000. So if you were to take the $50,000 you're going to make from this $100,000 and it's just going to cost you $12,000 of interest, technically speaking, 50,000 minus 12 is equal to $38,000. Now that's the opportunity of cash flow because you're leveraging, right? You're making money out of nothing. But here's the problem that I want us to all think about very clearly, because we kind of ignore this. We ignore the danger zones. What I just gave you right now is an ideal scenario. And we didn't even calculate principal. Usually principal is close to, 0.5% to 1% a year. 1% a month of the principal. So 1% a month of 100 grand is $1,000. So let's assume now you have the 2,000 of interest plus 1,000. So you're looking at close to 3,000. The rate of return I'm giving you is based on an ideal scenario. The rate of interest I'm giving you is based on a credit card interest rate, which a lot of people would qualify for. If you're trying to go ahead and get a $100,000 line of credit, you're coming into the documentation phase, which most of you guys don't necessarily want to give out. Number one, for confidentiality, and number two, because you don't necessarily feel comfortable about having your personal financials disclosed to certain institutions because you want unsecured credit, which is completely normal. But let's say that's the ideal scenario. It's obviously a pretty nice ideal scenario. You're making about, it's kind of raining, so I apologize about the little bit of noise you're going to hear. But going back to that, let's assume, 2% a month of interest. On top of that, you got the principal, which is 1,000, and now it's $3,000 a month in payments. And now let's say 6 months, 3 times 6, $18,000. So your 12,000 turned into 18 because you added another 6 of just principal payments. And now what's happening is you have 18,000. So now instead of 38,000, you're making 32,000. Ideal scenario. But what happens if all of a sudden you have to wait 7 months? Now your payments go from 18,000 ideally to, let's assume it goes to 21,000. Just by that alone. Just a quick little turnaround and an extra month added is 21,000. Now let's say, okay, well, it's going to take another month. So that 6 months now turns into 7 and 8. Now that 21,000 plus another 3,000 in payments, now you're calculating more. So that's $24,000 already. Now let's assume it costs another month, which is 9 months. And now your payments are costing you 24,000 times, plus 3, which is $27,000. So now your profit margins are shrinking. It starts to shrink and you start to wonder and you start to panic. And you say, you know what, screw it, I'll give up. I'll try not to pay. I'll do my best. I'll negotiate. And then you reason with yourself not to pay your credit card bill. But here's what you've done. You've screwed up your any financial opportunity to leverage again, to create another $50,000 again, to create more leverage again. And you're going to try to think to yourself that maybe I'll do credit repair and get this off my credit report and I'll be fine. The reality here is you cannot just walk away from obligation. You can get rid of it from the credit reports, but the bank have an internal database of damages, of people who basically took their money and haven't paid them back. Credit report or not, that's something that is systemized within the banks. It's called risk prevention and fraud mitigation. That is what they do. But the most interesting thing I want you guys to pay attention to is how an ideal opportunity turned into a disaster real fast. And the reason I'm sharing this with you guys is because a lot of us, we're very optimistic about scenarios of where we're going to leverage credit and how we're going to use that leverage to profit for ourselves. Even though it sounds amazing, and it is, the goal is to understand when you initially borrow and leverage credit, your opportunity will take you about an average 6 months to realize the benefit of that opportunity. In an ideal scenario, once again. But let's assume that it's not an ideal scenario. It's taking longer than expected. And you're now having delays. On top of that, you have to fork out, assuming 24% interest rate on the debt we assumed. Now you have to fork out $3,000 a month, assuming principal payment and interest. I'm just giving you guys a hypothetical scenario. Let's assume even if it was $2,000, not $3,000. Whatever the case, if you have to wait 6 months, you're going to have to fork out between $12,000 to $18,000 out of your pocket to realize that turnaround. So if just based on this scenario alone, you guys saw that there's a lot of situations that happens and financially you can basically go into a deficit and hurt yourself long term. Imagine what business owners go through when they rationalize with their own minds, thinking, I'm just going to add more money to this and I'm just borrowing more debt to try to sustain my business. What do they go through? And that type of thinking that they go through. Soon you start to realize that exact same mindset and thinking got them in trouble in the first place. That's what's happening. And that's on a large scale, a lot of businesses are going to shut down because of that debt mindset, because they borrowed more than they can chew. And because of that scenario, they've lost a lot of opportunities, the ability to create wealth. And in addition to that, they've lost the aspect of trying to recover because there's really no way to really recover. It's done. The damage is already done. And now they have to find a way to source it. Or if they can, they have to walk away from their business, or the next best option is to file bankruptcy, business bankruptcy. And if they use personal guarantee to get those credit, well, now they're liable personally as well. And because of the fact that they signed guarantee with the personal, and the debt is tied to the business, creditors will have most likely pursue them legally, try to collect on that to salvage the debt that they're going to lose, right? Or the income that they're going to lose. So those are scenarios I want you guys to think about. And whenever we look at opportunity, we got to think rationally. We got to think to ourselves, does this make sense? And if so, what can we do to protect ourselves that even though we see an ideal scenario of, amazing profit and amazing opportunities, we have to assume responsibility from day one when we borrow the credit. 30 days out, we have to pay the bill. And if we don't have the income to pay it, basically we're going to get stuck. So before we borrow, we have to be 100% sure that we want to do this. Because if we're not 100% sure, then basically you'll never get to the opportunity and get to realize that opportunity because you've never had the opportunity to go ahead and test that out because you didn't have the resources to back you during that time that you're leveraging your debt. So with that said, I want you guys to think about how to leverage properly. Have the resources to cover the debt while you're waiting for your opportunity to get realized. And make sure that you triple check, quadruple check your opportunity before you jump onto something, because the minute you borrow your debt, the minute you have to start paying for it. But let's assume that you have credit and you're scouting opportunities, but all of a sudden you figure out that that is not the right opportunity. Well, you're still lucky because you haven't used your credit. Therefore, you don't have to owe any bills yet. So I just want you guys to think about that. I want you to understand the mindset that I'm sharing with you guys, and why I've seen a lot of people fail in their business because of the exact mistakes that they're making based on what I just described to you guys. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and that you learned a few lessons here. And hopefully you guys took this knowledge to heart and my ranting here about leveraging and how to create that ultimate debt structure and realize the goals. If you have any specific questions in reference to what I just shared with you guys today, feel free to leave it in the comments section of this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing, turning the notifications on to all, so every time there's videos like these, you will be the first to know. And go ahead and give me a like on this video so that the YouTube algorithm can help me share this message across those who need it most. With that said, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Tarefter. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.